people, what up, though? We back with another episode of All Black Men Need Therapy. My name is Chief.
And I'm Bell.
And we have two guests with us today that I will allow, I was going to say let, but I'm going to allow Bell to introduce. And we'll hop right into it. Bell, you can introduce them and then we'll jump into the check-in.
All right, so I'm looking at this camera, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So I'm honored today, ladies and gentlemen. I've been vague, very vague with what I do for work, but I work in the staffing industry. And the two brothers that we have on the show today, I hold in extremely high regard, not only because of what they do as a profession, but who they are as men, right? So when we spoke to you guys a couple episodes ago about, or we might have went live, I'm not sure exactly how I got the message out, but I said part of our level up is we're going to start interviewing people, right? Like interviewing people. We're going to be bringing some therapists on and black men that are professionals and one of what they do or extremely good at what they do. So this is all in the same vein. So without further ado, I want to introduce two good brothers that we work for the same company, but they are special in the regard that they are the first, right? They are the first to be directors of diversity, equity, and inclusion for our company. We work for a really big company. But without further ado, to my left, we have my man, Donnell, a.k.a. Smooth. Donnell Campbell is director of DE&I and DJ, good friend of mine, and is great at what he does. And to the right of Chief is David DJ Jordan, same thing, right? We also the first director of equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we got him on today, guys, to talk about the plight, right? Talk about what it takes. Like a lot of people, they always, like what's the saying? If I had your hand, I'd cut mine off, right? It's like, but would you really though? Like really, would you? Like, do you know what it takes to like get there? You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to hearing their story because that's what we wanna talk about because you don't gotta go far, right, to find negative examples of black men, right? So it's like let's talk about those. I'm not gonna lie, like this is bothering me. Like I feel like I'm looking at the camera, but I feel like I should be looking at you.
I mean, it's all good. We can figure it out. I mean, we're having a conversation. The camera's just there.
Yeah, so the other thing too, ladies and gentlemen, is this is a new setup. It's a long story.
Very long story.
It's a long story. Nothing bad, but it's a long story. We're going to go live and talk about that right before this episode airs. So you'll hear the story prior to you hearing this. But without further ado, Donnell, DJ, welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all for showing up.
So you're first in your world, and you're also a first to the show because we've never interviewed anybody in person. This is our first time in person.
Look at that.
Yeah. Welcome to the level up, fellas.
Okay. You are the first.
So before we even dive into your lives and stories, we always do a check-in just to kind of see where we are mentally. Mental health check-in. To make sure we all good. Anything we got to get off our chest before we even touch on the topic and go into it. Go ahead. What's good? Check in. For the record, y'all, Bell had a couple drinks today.
I may or may not have had a couple drinks.
For
the record. No, I'm good, man. It's a lot going on, right? It's a lot. I feel like every time I talk, it's a lot going on. But it's a lot going on in my profession and with me in general. But I'm good, man. I had last couple of days, even though it's a lot going on at work, it's been good days. It's been real good days. It's a lot of change, a lot of shakeup that we're managing through. But I'm good, man. I'm good. Me and these brothers spent a lot of time together today, which I was grateful for because they're on their road tour, getting to all the offices and speaking the good word in terms of how we can just become better in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we were hanging out today. I brought in my sister Dana Lee. Shout out to Dana.
Shout out to Dana.
She is a bigwig at her company as well, which is all in the same vein of what we all are trying to get accomplished. So we spent some time with her today, and overall good day, man. I'm good, man. I was trying to get them to meet my dad, but we
almost might have to just go make a trip. So
and I almost drove over there before I came here, but I'm like, nah, he gonna have us over there too long. He gonna be telling stories and all of that. But
is a good time.
I gave him a tour though. I gave him
took him around the hood.
Yeah,
huh?
I gave him a tour. Showed him, where I came up at, and all. I should have took him by the stoop. I didn't
Take by Curtis though.
I took him by Curtis. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I thought my dad would have been there.
Oh, okay.
So I called him. I'm like, Dad, where you at? He was like, I'm at the parts store. I'm like, in the parts store he was on Allen Street. And I was just over there.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Called me back like 50 minutes later. Like, yeah, I'm home, but I ain't even pick up. So
that's pop. For sure.
But yeah, so I'm good.
On my end, man, things are good. Baby girl is now going through a circuit of softball tryouts. She got to try out for a different travel team. So she got like 10 teams to try out for the next like 2 weeks. So every day.
But how many can she play for though?
She'll play for one.
Oh, okay.
We're just trying to figure out where the best fit for her is, and whether she wants to play at her age level or play up.
That many softball teams.
There's you already know, once you're in the world of whatever it is, it's just huge. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's kind of cool. I feel kind of bad though, because I told my sons I was gonna pick him up today. We was gonna hang out and whatnot, and I forgot we had. Because remember, I thought today was tomorrow. I thought we were recording tomorrow.
You and me,
So I remembered, and I called them after work, and I texted Mom like, "Yo, I'm not going to make it. I forgot I had something going on." She know my mom. My memory's bad. She sent me a picture of them sitting on the porch waiting for me. so I felt terrible. So I went by, picked them up. Me and my shorty got some ice cream, hung out for a little while. But I ain't get a chance to take them swimming. It was stupid hot today. But so I was feeling like the bad dad. I'm leaving the kids sitting on the porch waiting for you. You know what I'm saying? So
just curious, how many times you waited for your dad?
Every episode is.
I just figured out.
I don't know if y'all been following, but obviously my dad hasn't been a part of my life, so this dude makes it a point to kind of a dad joke every episode, an absentee father joke every episode. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still waiting. On the porch. but outside of that, man, they're happy and healthy. Work is going good. I'm gearing up to release my poetry project. I'm excited about that. I've been doing a lot.
When can we expect that?
August 25th, we're gonna drop it. So on July 25th, the first piece of it is coming out, like a single, if you will, and then a little interview about it. It's gonna be dope. I got a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on.
It's an album, right?
Yep.
Or okay,
it's an album.
Like
an album of poetry.
How many tracks? Like how does that work?
13.
13? Is that standard?
According to the Recording Academy, you only need 15 minutes of continuous play. So I can tell a 15-minute story, and that
will qualify.
That will qualify you.
Yeah. So Chief is submitting his just so you guys know, his poetry for Grammy nomination. Yeah. So he's submitting for that.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about that. So we'll see what happens. So in the past couple of years, the poets have put in their albums and like petitioned the Recording Academy, because a while ago the spoken word category was literally words spoken. So it was mostly celebrities with audiobooks or comedians who have their sets recorded have been nominated. So a couple years ago, it was like Barack Obama, Dave Chappelle, Don Cheadle, LeVar Burton were nominees. Like it's Barack Obama and his chief. Like you know what I mean? So what happened was a ton of poets submitted their work, and the Recording Academy acknowledged that and have bumped audiobooks out of the category now. So audiobooks have their own category now. So the comedians have their own category. So now it's just traditional spoken word artists have been nominated. Last year, 5 traditional spoken word artists were nominated for that Grammy. Right. Dude I've shared stages with has won. So won last year. So it's kind of dope. So it gave us traditional spoken word artists like a dream, a hope. You know what I'm saying? Because we realize we can't compete with Barack Obama, but amongst our peers, we all got a chance. You know what I'm saying? So I'm super excited about that. But enough about me, man. Let's start with you. Check in, man. How you doing? What's going on?
Oh, man, I'm great, man. First of all, good luck. Well, actually, congratulations on winning that.
No doubt. I appreciate that. We got to speak in the affirmative for sure.
Absolutely. Let's speak. Yeah, because I need my dog on percentage.
And man, I'm doing great enough, obviously, because I'm here, right? And thank you, gentlemen, for having us here and like having this conversation. I'm doing well, man. It's funny, on the ride down here, DJ heard my son call me, my 21-year-old, well, soon to be 22 next week. Oh, wow. So shout out to Emilio on his on embarking on that next year in manhood, right? But calls me up. He's like, "Pops, what you got going on, like the Sunday after my birthday?" I'm like, I don't know what I got going on. He's like, you know what? Look, I think you should take me out to breakfast and we should hang out. Everybody else, what's up, son? You know what I'm saying? But but I love it, man, because it's just it's a reflection of when you talk about just checking in and kind of where my mental space is at right now. That is the thing. My kids are the thing that really brings me to a place of just comfort, a place of just knowing that they are safe, that they're not having to deal with some of the things maybe I had to deal with growing up, and we can get into that later, whatever. But it's just, it's times like that make me feel like, so special to actually have that dialogue and that conversation. And then, my brother over here, DJ, he and I had a conversation Sunday night when it comes to the work that we do. Talking about that mental check-in, man. Like I had to call him on one of them like 911s, and I got him on, what the hell we doing? What we doing, bro? Like, because there's so much garbage going on right now. They've hijacked DE&I and tried to make it a political agenda versus it being what it really should be. And so, and that's why I appreciate this brother so much, man, because he kind of talked me off the ledge. He, sent me a bunch of articles like, read this. That's why I always love this brother right here. But, from a mental standpoint, man, it's great to have that person that you can always call.
100%.
Right. And it can be able to be that person that's that grounding thing for you, right? And obviously, outside of that, loving the fact that we're going to be able to spend a little bit more time together in the coming weeks, the three of us together at a Black Man in Leadership Summit, where we're talking about mental health. And look, shout out to Bells, man, because I don't know, he may not call it out, but I'm going to call it out for him, right? He's actually speaking at that summit, right? And specifically talking about, mental health. And so I'm so proud of this man right here, man, and what he's bringing to the table and speaking his truth. So that's where I'm at, bro.
Remind me to get my ticket because I'm coming. But no, remind me to get my ticket. I'm coming.
All right. I'm not gonna argue with you.
It's dope to just to hear you talk about having a brother that you can reach out to in those moments of need, man, and just get some stuff off your chest. And I think that's primarily the reason why we have this platform, to be able to encourage 100%. Brothers to reach out to a homie and have these candid conversations. You know what I'm saying? DJ, what up? Talk to us, man. How you doing? Check in.
Man, I'm good. I'm really good. One, I'll just be honest. I'm intimidated by you cats. This is some amazing stuff going on right here. I really appreciate y'all. I really do. I mean, this is that brotherhood that I don't think a lot of people recognize, right? That comes together naturally, right? And so also I'm excited about being here. I'm excited about being here with y'all and speaking truth. Right. So, and if I'm speaking truth, yeah, I'm good. I'm good in like personal life. Hey, things are fan-friggin-tastic. I don't want to drop an F-bomb, but I probably will. But, personally, I got 3 kids. I got my grandbaby, who is also a Cowboys fan. I'm sorry, y'all, but...
Already?
Yes. But she makes me smile, literally. Right. She makes me smile on a daily basis. That is something I've never witnessed before in my life, right? So I got all these pictures that come across my phone every time I open up my phone. It's my grandbaby. So that tells you a little bit about legacy, and that makes me smile. So I'm good on a personal side. But as what Dee was saying, I am frustrated, just like he is, right? And I appreciate this relationship, this brotherhood that he and I have, and I appreciate that I am the one that he calls, right? Because he is the one that I call. Right, and my wife, it was Sunday night, and we were obviously doing the same thing. We're sitting out on our individual stoops and porches in our houses in 2 different locations. I could be further south, and he could be further north. And he calls me. We were both smoking a cigar, and we frustrated as all hell. It had to be like ESP, or what is that, ESP, whatever that is, So he calls me. I'm reading stuff, and he's like, "Man, I'm frustrated." We both smoking cigars, but I appreciate that. That we have this relationship, right? Thousands of miles away, we were able to connect. But that being said, I am frustrated that he was frustrated about what's going on. So I hope that we will get inside of that. But personally, again, I'm 100%, right? life is good for me right
That's
now.
awesome,
and we'll get into that, why that is, at this point in my life, through my story. So hopefully.
That's what's up. So we can tap into that. I noticed in looking at you guys LinkedIn, trying to do a little bit of research and whatnot, I believe it was you though. You mentioned, like, first of all, both of you mentioned it's your children first. You know what I'm saying? I think in your LinkedIn, outside of what you did, the first thing you put was father.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's just monumental for us as black men, because they say we don't exist. Not we don't exist, but we're not there. We're not present. So to look at that, I'm like, it says father first, then talk about what you do for a living. You know what I'm saying? So that's the best job we can have. But I wanted to ask you just, before we get into it, like, the grandfather love versus the father love, is it a completely different thing?
Completely different, dog. It's completely different. Look, I'm telling you, I tell people this all the time. And then you hear when you're younger, right? You hear, you can feel it through your grandparents, but you don't know what it really is until you experience it. But you hear older people say it, you're growing up, like, if I had my grandkids first, I'd have been happier then, so it's the truth. But here's the it's the truth. I swear to you, man, because the beautiful thing for me, at least, so I have one grandbaby, a granddaughter, and I have 3 children, 2 girls, 1 boy. And my son has my granddaughter. But what it is, man, it is unconditional, unbreakable love.
Yeah.
They sense it from you from day one, and you give it regardless of whatever. It has never happened like that to me, before. And then the other piece is because you get a second chance at it. Because my daughter, I can see my son's face. I can see his actions. I can see his mannerisms. I can see the same things through her. And so it's like I get a second chance. So you wonder, you already talk about, how the grandparents spoil you. Right? The reason why the grandparents spoil you because they understand that ice cream ain't going to hurt you.
Right.
For breakfast in the morning. It don't matter. You can jump off the couch, right, as much as you want, and you can swing from the chandeliers because now I got enough money to fix all of that. Right. So swing as much as you want, baby, because I didn't let your daddy do it, right? And so it is giving them joy. So it is, you see pure, unadulterated joy from them. And so that is the best part, right?
Man, that hit me, that struck a chord. Because ice cream for breakfast is Mamita's favorite dish for Chase. Like, it's crazy. I'm like when we go over there, he wakes up early or she wakes him up. I'm not really sure what happens, right? My son, on any other circumstances, sleeps 12 hours straight. So he's not waking up till 9, typically. And then I come downstairs, it's 8 o'clock. He's already on his second bowl of ice cream.
Yes.
I'm like, but it's like I can't be mad. Like I obviously I wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like that's their thing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's their thing. So I'm like, I don't love it, but hey, like,
look, you can't fight it, brother.
Yeah, I don't.
This is. It might come across this way, but I'm not trying to be that way. But there's like a significance gap between your children, right?
Yeah.
Does it not feel like my man DJ was saying, like it's like because you now have the money to fix the chandelier.
Yeah.
You have the resources to provide and care or love or whatever differently because you're in a better mental state. I mean, consider how young you had sugar and so on and so forth. Does it not feel? I mean, I know it's not grandchildish, but like. You also, I would assume you carry that same sentiment, no? Like, you get to do it over again in a way that's like...
Let me tell you the biggest difference. He's a black boy. So, I can't allow him to get away with everything. Whereas where swinging from the chandelier for DJ is fine, right? Like, she's a little girl. Like, we're always going to have more grace with our little girls, right? You parent Mia different than you parent the boys. Period. I don't care what you say. Period.
It's weird though in that regard because when you say that, I think I'm tougher on her than I am my boys. Honestly, maybe because she's older and she can absorb the lesson more now. I do think I'm tougher on her than I am my boys.
But I think there's more dynamics there than just gender. I think there's dynamics of relationship. Like Mia basically lives with you, right? Where the boys they're there a lot. They're there a lot, but you're raising Mia. You know what I'm saying? And then she goes to her mom's house. Whereas like you guys are co-parenting the boys. You see what I'm saying?
No doubt.
So it's a little different dynamic. But I'm definitely softer with Chase than I am with Bree. Like, no question about it, because one, I was 15, didn't know what I was doing, right? So a lot of the stuff that I was doing was what I was taught. But like we talked about in the last episode, it's like that stuff was taught to us without context, right? Like we were being raised without context. It was like, do as I say, not as I do. But there was no reason as to why I'm doing it, but I had to do it because it was what I was told to do, right? You know what I'm saying? So, whereas, perfect example, last night, right? It was bath night. And,
You don't bathe every night?
no, every other night. Every other night. Yeah, every other night. That was funny. And I had calls, so I was on a call until 7:45, and Lorraine was with him from 6:30 to 7:40, 6 o'clock to 7:45. So, like, and I hear, you know, he negotiates with her, like he like,
I've seen it.
yes, but with me, it's like I'm not negotiating with terrorists. Like I'm not doing it.
Tiny terrorist.
Yeah, like I'm not doing it. So when I got upstairs, like I heard him like trying to get him in the bath, and he was like being unreasonable. And I got up there, and instantly I'm like, oh no, you about to get in this bath. You about to take these clothes off. I'm not doing this with you. But something told me to just like pause for a second. So I paused for a second. I sat down on the toilet, and I'm like, Chase, what's up, man? Why don't you want to take your clothes off? And then we got into a conversation. He was crying during the conversation, but I got him to take his clothes off. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I probably display a little bit more grace, right? Because if this was Bree, back then I wouldn't have had that much grace, right? Because no one taught me.
Ass in the tub.
Exactly. No one taught me that I had a voice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, no, this is what you're doing, and then there's nothing. This is not up for the debate.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas with him, I'm trying to raise him with, like, okay, let's talk about your feelings. Like, and I'm like, if you're upset, it's okay. Let's talk about it. And then and he's so funny. He's at the age now where we got through it, and then all of a sudden everything's great. And he starts laughing. And he's like, no, Daddy, I'm not crying. I'm laughing. I was laughing.
Right.
No, you're not. You little liar. You were crying. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Like, you're trying to manipulate me. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's the difference for me.
Yo, okay, so again, before we even get into y'all, general question. I don't know your backgrounds. I'm going to learn all that. But real quick, yes or no? 2-part question. Did your father tell you he loved you? Do you believe your father told you he loved you enough growing up? And do you think you've told your son you love him enough?
No and no.
Yes and yes.
Okay. So we can get into, once we get into the story, let's dive back into that. I was asking, we talked about the difference in, like, you know, raising then and raising now, and, you know, emotional intelligence being important and pouring that into your kids and whatnot. So when I was talking about being, like, more gentle with my boys, like, I'm even with all of them, but I'm making sure, like, I'm not, when they ask that question, it's like, yes, my father tells me he loved me all the time and so on and so forth, because as he'll make a joke, obviously mine didn't, you know what I'm saying? Right. So I want to get into that just because, you know, we're there. So without further, let's dive into the background and whatnot.
How you got the first
and just so because I run the show. Anyways, so we can go down a rabbit hole, fellas. There's been several times where, like, I've called this dude and I literally just called to talk about his job. Right. Like, I've had him on the phone for hours, like, yo, what about this? What about that? I have this, like, crazy passion for listening to people talk about what they're passionate about, or watching people do what they're passionate about. You know what I'm saying? And it's so cool. When I do my public speaking events sometime with, like, kids, I'm like, yo, there's someone somewhere that knows everything there is to know about X, Y, Z. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, someone somewhere knows everything about this couch, and that's their jam. Right. You know what I'm saying? And it's so cool, like, how we go into, like, someone knows about the lighting. That's someone's jam. You dig what I'm saying? Right. So, forgive me if, like, because I could
He's gonna
feel
fan,
free to
he's
stop
gonna,
me.
He's gonna fan out. is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm saying.
pretty
He's
much.
gonna
Like,
fan out.
I'm so intrigued by this because it's not my lane, but it's so cool to learn stuff that I have no clue about, that I'm not really in depth in. You know what I'm saying? So if we start going left, feel free to reel me back in. You know what I'm saying? So, explain to the people like exactly what it is you do. Like,
Also, these questions are for both you guys. So
Yeah,
whoever
so
wants to go first, yeah.
You go first.
Well, I gotta go first.
Sometimes you are the leader in this group of.
Now we want to admit that I'm the leader. Oh, okay.
Just right now.
Seems very convenient right now.
Only when it works
Seems
for me.
really convenient right now.
Only when it works for me. No doubt.
Right. You were my second marriage that sucks.
Yes.
My first marriage to my wife is wonderful, but my second wife over here is horrible.
That's all right. You still love me.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I openly, and you know, these two gentlemen have heard me use this terminology before. We are the arbitrator of fairness.
okay.
The cleanest way I can probably describe it, right?
I like that.
When you think about the fact that, quite frankly, life isn't fair. That's exactly what, you know, and as people go through their lives and various different things they're going to do in their professional lives, it's not always fair. And I think it's our job to bring to the light the things that aren't fair, make sure that we're calling those things out, and to make sure that not only are we calling them out, but we're doing something to change them, and encouraging and quite frankly guiding our organizations down that path of what it looks like. And the other thing is giving voice to the voiceless, right? So there's a lot of components of that piece of it. Is why things aren't fair is because those folks who've never had a voice are not in those rooms when those discussions are happening. So it's DJs and my job to make sure that we are echoing the voice of the people, as I guess the best way I could probably say it. And then lastly is to make sure that we are setting our organizations up to be as successful as they can possibly be, just in business in general. In the current state of where we are today, and DJ is much better at kind of explaining this than I am. But you know, the browning of America is going to happen by 2043. And if you believe that your organization is not at a place to where they're going to be able to accept black and brown people into their organizations, guess who's probably going to be at the bottom of the list of the selection place of where I would like to go work at and spend my time at? Most people spend literally 50 to 60% of their lives working. And that's where you spend your time at. So if I get a choice of where I want to spend it at, it's going to be with people who actually appreciate me, right, who value me, and believe that I bring some value to the organization, and I receive that back. So if you're not in a place where you're able to receive those folks, then you probably won't be the people receiving those people, which means your bottom line is going to be impacted.
No, for sure. So I heard you, and it's so interesting and ironic to me that, so I do public motivational speaking, right? And I've oftentimes said I try to be a voice for the voiceless. And you say the same thing on two completely different fields. You know what I'm saying?
But not really, though.
I mean,
because you're speaking to the same demographic,
right? But I mean, just you wouldn't. I wouldn't have figured that they would describe what they do as that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's cool to kind of hear it that way, because it just helps bring everything full circle. Just two different lanes.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the reason why, you know, this is Magic Kareem show. This is Kobe Shaq show, no doubt, right? And so I appreciate you pointing that out, right? We are that. We try to be that. The same as yourself, right? We are trying to create a voice for the voiceless. And what people don't understand is that voiceless comes in all different aspects, right? So then, you know, some people may say the people that don't have a voice are people that are impoverished, or people that are, you know, don't have parents, or, you know, you'll think about some of the worst cases that we can, you know, the worst cases in a person's life that are happening. But it also happens in the corporate field, right? It happens in corporate America on a daily basis. So what we do is exactly what Donnell said here, but we are those people that then create the space. So like he said, we identify that there is a voiceless people out there, and we create a voice for them, and then we save a space for them, right? So the purveyors of fate or fairness basically means that, hey, everyone has an identity, right? And, you know, there's certain identities we get along with. There's certain ones we don't, right? And this is not politics. We don't deal with politics. We have to deal in the politics, you know, they come along, but we don't deal in politics. We're talking about that person, that human being, that life there, and what is their values, and then trying to create space for that. And then basically showing people how they can actually get along. Because we'll get along more. We get along actually better than what we think we do. We just let a lot of BS come in the middle and divide us. Does that make sense? So we let those things, those identifiers such as race, gender, religion, sexuality get in the way of actually the connection that we have as human beings. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So, yes, it's very, very important that we, as black men, right, we make sure we save space for those people that identify inside of that, but we save space for everybody else as well. We just know that black space a little bit better.
No, makes sense.
It makes sense?
Makes sense for sure. So I noticed that, and forgive me, this is me being petty right here, but he and I would have this debate. I noticed on one of your pages it says the director of DE&I. The other one says the head of DE&I. Does one have a hierarchy or no?
Yeah.
No. One has a hierarchy. One just has more of an ego than the other.
No.
In both cases, he's HNIC.
That is it at the end of the day. Now let's go get something to eat.
Great movie.
With a Hennessy chaser.
Movie.
Right.
So, obviously we talked about the work, the definition of what you guys do.
Right.
How did we get here, right? So again, question for both of you guys. Like, talk to me about growing up in Detroit. Talk to me about growing up in St. Louis and how you eventually got to this space. And if you guys want to... I gotta fix my mic. Didn't have to deal with this last time we recorded, so I'm saying. Anyway, yeah, I'm just curious, right? Because I mean, so for those who don't know, we spent half the day together today, and I took them around where we grew up, right? So where I grew up, where schools I went to, stuff like that, and all of that stuff like plays a part, right? And who you become, right, as a man. And I'm just curious, right? Like, what were some of the things like that you saw growing up that either pushed you here or maybe deterred you, but you still found a way? I'm curious to that from both of you guys. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first if you don't mind on this one. All right. Pass the ball to Shaq or I don't know, whatever.
Which one of y'all is Shaq?
Oh, his big ass is Shaq.
Yeah. That's okay. But anyways, hey, that's a great question, and I'll try and shorten it, right? Yeah. But I do want to share, some of those marker moments and some of the things that have pushed me here, right? And as I think about the emotion that comes up when you ask why am I here and how I got here, right? So you asked a question earlier. You said, hey, did your dad tell you that he loved you, and do you tell your son, did you love him enough, right? Yes, my dad was a Baptist pastor. Now, coming out of Georgia, was really, truthfully, a sharecropper.
Yeah.
Okay? Not a slave, right? But a sharecropper. Just one small generation off of slavery, right?
Yeah.
Right? And my dad was a Baptist pastor and met with this wonderful woman who's my mother, right? Both of them coming out of Georgia, or he came out of Georgia, she came out of Mississippi, and they raised us in St. Louis. And so my dad was, from the very begin, right, all about the people, right, all about the civil rights movement, right. So I was born in 1971, so I'm just a few years off of the 60s, right, just coming out of that. And so my dad raised us in the church. Right. Now, I cuss like a sailor, so don't get me wrong. Let the smooth take food is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, he raised us in the church. But the reason why I say that is it's the people. It wasn't the religion that got me here. It's the people. What I fell in love with was the action around the people because he was in the community. We were a community church. We weren't one of those mega churches and so on and so forth. We were barbecue, and fish plates and we were working in the people. We were the missionaries. We were doing revivals and so on and so forth. So I was amongst the people. And so my wife and I, we talk about it all the time. My dad taught me this without me even knowing. Okay? So anyway, so then, But, you know, I didn't want to go into the ministry, right, even though that this is my ministry. I didn't want to go into the ministry necessarily, you know, if you will, like that. And, you know, and I wanted to make money, right, because I wanted, you know, because pastors, then, they don't make money, right? He was bivocational. He was a barber also. So we had to, so, you know, it's the black men's, you know, country club, barbershop.
Right.
I grew up in a barbershop. Barbershop in the church. I can't get no better, right? You know, when you come to that. Long story short, I got into the industry, and I got into, you know, the production side of things, where we produce and you know, what we call, you know, spread, if you will, right? We got into that, and I produced and led and got into different groups and you know, got disappointed a lot and so on and so forth. But how I got here today is, again, going back to my father, right? A few years ago, it was probably 3-4 years ago before I got into this job, we were talking about some of the things that were just happening, right? This is before George Floyd, right, in that whole situation. But the things that have been happening to us for years upon years upon years and so on and so forth. And, you know, of course, there was a lot of, you know, police brutality and so on and so forth. And my dad came to me one day, as he always does, right? And it's like, hey, what are you doing about that? I'm like, you know, I'm doing this, blah, 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 blah. He's like, okay. You know, something else, you know, I call my dad, and he's like, what are you doing about that? And I'm like, oh, well, Dad, you know, I'm this generation, so what we do is this and this and this. You know, because people were out protesting and stuff. Like, what are you doing about that? And he let it go again. And then when I come back, I call him, hey, you see what happened? He's like, what are you doing about that? I was like, oh. He's like, what are you doing about that? All this stuff that we talked about, all these things that we taught you, what are you doing? Because I'm thinking, you know, I can't only do so much. Now I'm producing, I've got my family, I got all this other stuff. He's like, bullshit, excuse me.
No, good.
But he's just like, what are you doing about that? Well, as the universe, you know, would take it, and God creates this opportunity. I've been in DE&I, I've been active in DE&I, but really from the back seat, right? From this, I'm giving to this and I'm supporting this and so on and so forth, but my foot is not implanted inside of it. The universe brought a challenge to me, and they brought this job to me, right? I didn't get offered a job. It was just someone told me that there's an opportunity. I could not hear my father's voice in my head.
Wow.
Right? And I said, what am I going to do about this? So you asked me, I was with another company, you know, similar, you know, we worked for the same company, but I was in a different division, if you will. And when this job came up, there was no way I could not apply for that job. I had to try it. Yeah. I didn't know anybody in this division worth, you know, that I could call on, if you will. So the universe put it out there for me and challenged me, because my father said to me, what are you doing about it? Right? And then I was convicted. And I was convicted because I got the job. And now it's like, now you're doing something about it. Now you're actually doing something about it. You're not just talking about it. So I know it sounds a little bit vague, but that's how I got here. It was the challenge from my father, and the universe put it into my pathway that I could not get out of this. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think it should be stated that you were with the same company for 25 years prior
at that time. Yes.
to taking this job. And it's like, think about it, right? Like, some of us, we can't get out of our own way after doing something for 6 months. Like, nah, that's how I've always done it, so I'm not going to change it. Yeah. Right? But you were successful, right? You were successful, and you said, no, I'm called for something more.
I'm called for something more.
Right? And pivoted.
Right.
Right? So going from managing producers, right, people that drive revenue, right, to essentially being HR adjacent, right?
Yes.
With their role. Yes. So that, I mean, so for those listening, it's like going from a player to a coach while you're still in your prime as a player.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, or even worse, going from a player to back office. Right? Like I'm going to make decisions that impact this team holistically, right? And I'm not going to score any more touchdowns. I'm going to get a desk and start talking and educating on what we can do to make this team better. Even though I'm not physically out here helping us win, right? Yeah. Like putting up a number, right? I'm pulling the strings from behind the scenes to give you guys what you need to be better. Like that, dude, I'll be honest, DJ, and thank you for sharing that. I don't know if I could have done that. Yeah. Right? Like, I'm being honest. Like, because I know what you do, right? And I know what you did, and I know, like, how one's compensated compared to the other, right? And then the ego and the identity attached to doing something for so long and then saying, I'm called for something more, right? So kudos to you, man. I didn't know that. So that's awesome.
Appreciate
that's
the
awesome.
question.
No, that's dope.
DJ Smooth,
What up, though?
talk to us, man. Talk. So let me back up. So I met DJ in when he got the job, basically. So 3 years ago, I met Donnell back in 2019. We were at a leadership event, and up until that point, he was like the only person that I had like actually known from Detroit. But right when I had met him, I started listening to Crime Town. It was a podcast, which if you don't listen, is really good. They haven't put out an episode in a while or a series in a while, but it was about Kwame Fitzpatrick.
Kwame Kilpatrick.
Kwame Kilpatrick. And man, when I tell you, I was like on the edge of my seat with that podcast because it's just so many layers. Like to Detroit, like them as a city, them as a people, it's so many layers. So when I met Donnell, I'm like, man, like, dude, talk to me about Detroit, right? And it's like, and I remember him saying, he's like, we were walking to the museum, the African American Museum in Baltimore, and then he was like, yeah, man, the thing I can tell you about Detroit people, man, is like, we don't really care about who you are. You know what I'm saying? It's like Pistons come through, it's like, we just be like, what up, though? Like, they're just regular, like regular people. It's like, we don't, like, that stuff don't impress us. And I'm like, man, like, this podcast and meeting Donnell, I'm like, man, y'all dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, people from Detroit is dope. And I only have one frame of reference in the podcast, but I'm like, I need to know more. So Donnell and I have clicked since the first day we met, you know what I'm saying? And obviously been lockstep because we're in the same operating company.
Was he one of the only brothers in the room?
No, it was actually, ironically, all brothers in the room. That was the point of the meeting, you know, so. But it was bringing attention to the brothers that were in the country that I and even Donnell in some cases didn't know. We didn't know they existed. Like, we didn't know who they were. So this meeting was to bring us all together, and from that we formed a community. Gotcha. You know what I'm saying? So
that's dope.
Yeah, so that's how it started. But the floor is yours, good brother, for the question.
No, I appreciate it. So for me, you know, Detroit is definitely where a lot of the stars set for me. So for those who don't know about Southwest Michigan, Southeast Michigan, my bad. It's like the second most segregated place in the country.
Second to who, I wonder, because I feel like Boston is up there too.
I think Boston might be one.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. It might be one. I did not know that about Detroit.
So, you're still there.
Yeah.
I'm out there in November, so I'm gonna hit you up.
Oh, that's what up.
That's what's up.
Yeah, come through. You already know. Look. You name a city in Detroit, I can tell you exactly what demographic lives in that city. You even label a side of Detroit, so like even think Southwest Detroit. I can tell you that's where our Hispanic community is at. You say, you know, again, back when I was growing up, you would say like a city called Oak Park, Michigan, right, which is just north of Detroit. That's where the Jewish community was at. You know,
that's the high school my cousin went to.
Oak Park.
She texted me. Yeah.
Okay, Oak Park. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. We call that Fashion Park now, but it's all good. It's a fashion show every day you go to that school over there. But the thing about it is that and then we also, outside of their own country, we actually have the largest population of Arabics in anywhere in the country, in anywhere in the world, actually.
Wow.
So we have a large Arabic community as well, right? And so when you think about all those various different demographics living in this place, we all live in our spots. Now, we work together because you don't have a choice. You all got to work together, that kind of stuff. Right. But everybody lives very separately. And so, that's how I grew up, and that's what I knew. I was, and getting to how I got into the space, man, it started from that because I was fortunate enough to have a mother who had foresight, right? And I think that's, shout out to all the black mothers out there, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, they don't get enough credit for just the vision that they have and being able to put you on a path to be able to go down a road that maybe you don't see for yourself, but they can make it happen. And that's exactly what happened with me. So, speaking to that, like, I grew up in the city. And so, and my sister and I were just talking about this the other day. Like, we are literally, it's me, her, and like 3 other people from my neighborhood that grew up in like a 1.5-mile radius that are actually still like around, that are either in jail or dead, right? So it's just amazing to kind of see that stuff. But my mother, we were low income, all that great kind of stuff. But she found a way to send me and my sister to private school, even though, and again, Mama made a way out of nowhere, as they always say, right? So I don't know how she did it, but she made it happen. By that, I was literally sent out to a school which is called Dearborn, Michigan, which literally I was the only white person in my grade, let alone, I was the only black person in my grade, right? So my days consisted of me going out to an all-white school, being the only black kid in that school, to coming home to my neighborhood where there were no white people to be seen, right? So it was always just this flip-flop back and forth of every day was kind of like, I don't know. Now I say it's like a little bit of a trauma, like it was growing up when you really think about it, right? But that was intentional by my mother. Like, her whole thing was that, like, you need to be able to talk to everybody. Her favorite thing was you need to be able to talk to the bum on the street and the CEO in the suite and everybody in between, right? And that was her go-to phrase for me, and that's the one that stuck in my head. So she had me go out there for school and everything. And so at one point, at 15 years old, she decided to send me to this camp. And this camp was called Camp Anytown. It was different, man. And so these cats, it was very different. Like I talked about, we had everything very segregated. So what this camp did, it took kids from these very different cities, brought them all together, took them 1.5 hours away from the city, put them all together, and literally just had us just socialize with one another and learn about each other.
Right.
And learn about, I learned about what the Jewish community was doing. I learned about what the Muslim community was all about, those kind of things. I learned about what my Asian brothers and sisters have to go through, and that was at 15, right? Never even, never knew. And before that, even though I was going to school with those people, we never had those kind of conversations because it wasn't. That's you already know how it wasn't. Whatever, the black house. Right. We're going to this house, stay in this house. You don't talk about what's going on. Right? So when you go out there, it was a little different, man. So they did this thing, and they had this one exercise, man. I'll never forget. They called it a separation exercise. So what they do is they give you. It's about 3 days. They get everybody to get to know each other really well and all that kind of stuff. The 4th day, what they did is that they said, hey, look, everybody they give you a different color sticker, and it was like, hey, if you can only talk to the people that have the same sticker as you. You can only socialize, you can only eat with the same people that have the same sticker as you. And the whole thing was designed around your ability to actually just break the system. Not allow the system to tell you what you should and should not do when it comes to being a human being. And so what we did as kids is people will start running around okay, well, I'm going to take my blue sticker and, you give me tear off a piece of your red sticker. So now we can talk to each other. Yeah. And that, because these are people you start to get to know and get to know real well and that kind of stuff. So it was masterful how they did it. Unbeknownst to me, during that same time, I actually met my first wife at that point in time. And obviously, I didn't know she was going to be my wife at the time, but I met her there, and she's Italian and black. She's Sicilian and black. So I had a chance to really learn a lot. And so one of the most influential people, or one of the influential men in my life, just so happened to be my former father-in-law, who's a Sicilian white man.
Wow.
Now, growing up, I would have never thought that would have been a statement that had ever come out of my mouth. But I got to learn some things from him. Now, don't get it twisted. He was from Detroit, so he knew his way around. He knew what he was doing. But it was still a different aspect of that. So all of that, man, put me to a place to where I was fortunate to be able to, again, learn from that experience. So then when you transfer over to, obviously, the organization we work for today, and kind of growing up in the company, it gave me the opportunity, because, again, my children are biracial children.
Right.
So when people would talk, and again, you know how it is growing up in a black household, the white kids like all the time, whoa, right. Go slow your talk right there with that one. You had to make sure they were clear on that. But it was always, when I came to the organization, I was been a part, to DJ's point, I've been a part of a lot of the D&I initiatives for the company for many years prior to that, right? I was always really involved in the various different things we're doing because it truly hit home for me.
Right.
Because I knew what that meant and know what that resided for. Well, how I specifically got into this role, because again, I could have continued to do that and quite frankly been fine. To your point of, I was successful in what I was doing. There was really no reason for me to kind of change routes there. But I didn't start getting serious about this until, unfortunately, my son passed away. So when my son passed away back in 2013, I remember telling myself I need to be a better version of myself for him, right? And so for me, that's where everything kind of turned for me. So for me, it was an opportunity for me to look at it and say, how can I make sure I'm contributing back and be the type of man that I want my kids to look up to? So when you asked me the question, when I said no and no, is because you and I are probably very similar into the fact that I call him my sperm donor, was never around. He was an abusive guy to my mom's growing up and all that kind of stuff. So we never clicked on all that kind of stuff, and he's since deceased, all that kind of stuff. So no, I literally never heard the words from him saying I love you. He's literally never told me that in my entire life. I transferred that over to my kids, where I was always so busy trying to make sure that I was being a father figure, because no one ever taught me how to be a father. I was so busy trying to tell them what to do wrong. I mean, what they need to be doing, instead of telling them things like "I love you" too.
Right. Instead
of including that in part of it. So when I lost my son, it was one of those things that clicked for me. It was like, I'm not going to have that happen again. Like, my other kids are going to know that I love them. My other kids are going to know what their dad brings to the table. My other kids are going to know how important it is for me to make sure I stand up for them and stand up for anybody like them. My daughter's going to know that you, as a strong black woman, or a future strong black woman, are going to be able to walk into any room that you want to and claim whatever it is that you want in this country. And so that was, to me, was just my mission. And I made it very clear, even when I interviewed for this job. My last words in my interview was, okay, what was last thing I got to say? I said, look, here's the thing. I would love to do this job here. But if I don't do it here, I'm doing it somewhere. Because I understand what my calling is now. And now that is the case, there's nothing you or anybody else is going to tell me otherwise. That's going to make me change that. So that's what it was for me, bro.
That's dope, man. I think you touched on a lot of good things. And it's interesting, man, as black fathers, how we can overcompensate with the thought that we're doing the right thing. Right? Like he's like, well, nobody ever told me this, so I'm going to make sure you know this, right? But there's a big component that you're also missing, right? It's like, yeah, that's good, right? But what's the saying, right? People don't care how much you know, so they know how much you care, right? So it's interesting, man, because you do that too. Like, you not in a negative way. Neither one of you are in a negative way, but you overcompensate. Because you're like, I always say, like, he's like a textbook parent, right? Like just listening to his conversations and stuff, I'm like, man, I need to start doing more of that. You know what I'm saying? But like he does a really good job, but I think it's by design. Like, it's not haphazard. It's like, no, I want to be the best version of a father that almost like that I wanted to see. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And we spoke about this on the last episode. Us now as parents, right? One, we have more resources, right, than our parents. Yeah. Hands down, bar none, period, right? We have more resources. In a lot of cases, we're more educated, right? And in mostly all cases, our EQ is much higher, right? Yeah, like, much higher, because the EQ component was impacted by a lot of things, right? Whether it be poverty, whether it be parents who grew up in the civil rights movement or Jim Crow South, whatever the case. Yeah. Like, their EQ, there wasn't a space for that, right? In a lot of cases. So it's like, no, I'm preparing you for this tough world out here that I'm living in, not realizing in a lot of cases you're not gonna live in that same world. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But we don't know what we don't know, right? So thank you for that, man. That was good. I should have mentioned, it's actually kind of a two-part question.
Before we even go there, so dude, just listening to you talk, there's already a lot of things that I've taken to heart and so on and so forth. I don't want to get too deep on you, but just in terms of the overcompensating part. Yeah. I didn't learn that until we started having this conversation on a podcast. And then I started to realize it, and it's like, I really do tend to overcompensate for the negative components in my life. And it's down to the like I've never been drunk or high a day in my life because I watched a man get hit in the head with a brick when I was like 9. And in my head at that time, it's like I don't want to drink because that's what happens. Like I'm an adult, I'm a grown ass man. I want to have a drink with my boys. I should be able to. Right. But it's like I'm overcompensating for that negativity. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like not having a dad around. I'm really trying to like do all this for my kids because I didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? Right. Do you find yourself like now that I don't know if it's ever been brought to your attention like that, but hearing that, does it make sense for you too? Because it made complete sense for me.
Yeah,
I've never looked at it like that.
No, absolutely. Because here's the thing. You grow up, especially, people, at least in my era growing up, right? We didn't talk about this kind of stuff. No. This wasn't the type of stuff you talked about. Like, what? Like, sit down, man up, right? That was the terminology all the time, right? Go man up. So even if you were feeling those things, you weren't gonna say it because you didn't, you were supposed to be manning up. So to that point of just that overcompensating piece of things, man, it's like, okay, what am I missing? What am I not giving them that I know, to Bell's point, that man, I wish would have been done for me? But you start going now, boom, 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 and then it just becomes this snowball effect, bro. And that's the thing that I had to kind of very quickly realize. Well, not quickly, but I ended up realizing was that's exactly what I was doing. Right? I am so fortunate, man. My oldest son is, shout out to Antonio. That's my oldest son, man, and he's 32. And okay, I got grandbabies too, so I feel you on that. I was so fortunate to have a son who, although I was a boy raising a boy, gave me some grace, and he didn't even realize he was giving me that grace. And now today, like hearing my son talk about mental health, hearing him talking about what it means to him, hearing him actually even come at me like, Pops, when you did these things, this is how it impacted me. But I also understand you did those things because this is how these things impacted you. Wow. He's so much further ahead in that space than I am. So now when I look at my grandson, I'm like, oh, he's good. Right. He's good. Right. I don't have to overcompensate because I'm seeing in my son that he's recognizing that stuff in himself, and he's actually doing the work that I never did at his age. So I'm like, I'm good, bro.
But here, you guys call it overcompensating. So I want to affirm you, first of all, brother. You call it overcompensating. You could use some type of negative pejorative, but what we know it is breaking generational curses. Right. So call it what you want, label it however you want to. I want to give you that choice. I want to allow you to give yourself that choice. But I appreciate you. I mean, brother, I'm just meeting you, and I see the passion. So what you're doing is breaking a generational curse and starting something new. You're starting to benefit for your family. So I'm just happy because the other alternative, the other choice, an option was to do what you had seen, which was not be there. 100%. Right? I want ice cream now too. You can leave me on the stoop today. You take me to go get some ice cream. I appreciate that because I can't tell you how many. Yeah, we were rarities, right? And having a father and where I grew up, right? So having that is wonderful. But I've seen that, and I've seen how that affects so many of my other friends, right? Again, I'm 52 years old, so I've seen that, and I've seen even those men that they're now turning to men and how they have continued the opposite, right, of what you're choosing to do. So I want to affirm you, I want to salute you, and I want to tell you I appreciate sitting right here next to you because you're like, all right, well, just because he wasn't there, it's because a sperm donor wasn't there, and I say that because I've known his brother, that's what he calls him, wasn't there. Don't mean that I can't be.
Right, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Shit, I may love being a father.
I want to take that affirmation and throw it back your way, man. And I don't want to touch into it, but I'm going to say that I listened to your story just now, and it punched me in the chest. And you walked in here, you smiled, we dapped it up, we smiled, we laughed, we had some jokes. You're smiling now, you're carrying yourself, your chest is high, your head is high, your chest is out. And again, I don't want to get too deep, but you mentioned losing a son.
Yeah.
That is probably my greatest fear, probably any parent's greatest fear. So to see you walk in, and obviously I wouldn't know that by just looking at you, but just the way you carry yourself, and I say it now because obviously I'm not going through, but I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So to see you come in here and just carry yourself in a manner and smile.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like my mom lost a son. So
right.
I remember the first time I saw her smile after it happened. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And it was quite a while after, but the moment is very, very vivid in my head.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So just, again, without getting into it, I salute you, man, because I don't know. I believe I'm very mentally strong, but that is something that would completely break me.
Hey, man, look, I'm blessed.
For
right?
Sure, for sure.
I'm blessed. I'm blessed for the time that I had with him, number one. But I go back to once again, shout out to all the black mothers out there, because I was taught that by my mother. My mother taught me how to be resilient, but she also taught me how to make sure that I understood the value in people, right? And so, in the value of time, and that's something that this has been a journey for me. Like, to your point, coming in, hold my head up, I think about it every single day. I wear him literally on my wrist every single day. So I see him and I'm with him. He's with me every single day, right? Yeah, no doubt, right? So he's with me every single day. But it's also, he's also my superpower, right? Because that's my motivation. When you talk about like the work that we do and all that kind of stuff, it's like, and that's the other part of what we do a lot of times, because people, want to throw stones sometimes and all those kind of things. And, when it comes to pain, I'm like, bro, come on now. If you're not going to, there's nothing you're going to say to me that's going to inflict more pain than I've already been through. Right. So, so my ability to don't give a F is my cutoff game is strong. So I'm good.
Again, we going left, but this is all black men need therapy.
Yeah.
And to your point, do you feel almost like immune? Not immune, but what's the word I'm looking for as it pertains to death now? Like, is it almost like
I have an unhealthy relationship with death? That's just being honest. I have because it doesn't bother me anymore.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I mean. Because of that experience, like you said, there's nothing that can take me back to that place.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what I'm saying? But it's just like,
I don't want to go like we can't go. I don't go too deep into it. I mean, like. And these fellas know, but it was a multitude of situations. So to get into it, my mom passed away in December. My son passed away 3 months after my mom. So when I got the double hit of that, like, and that, you lose your mom, you're like, you never experienced pain. I literally remember saying to myself, I will never feel a pain like this again. And then I lost my son. And I was like, okay, God, I got the message.
Right.
I got message received. I got it. And then, unfortunately, even before that, I've had a lot of loss in my life. So I've dealt with loss a lot of times in my life, right? So when you deal with that, right? And again, I don't even know if the best word to say is deal with it, right? Because it just is, right? So for me, it's always gotten back to, okay, those people who were extremely important to your life are no longer here. What are you going to do to honor them? The sacrifices she gave up in order for me to be in this spot, I don't have any choice but to be successful. Right. She put too much on the line for me to get to that point. The things that my son was going to be, I don't have any choice but to make sure I'm trying to be successful. One of the biggest things that, and I ended with this, one of the biggest things my brother-in-law, who was a minister, actually gave the eulogy for my son. And the most impactful thing he said during that eulogy is that you have no idea what God kept your son from having to go through. So, and that is the thing that keeps me at peace. That's how I walk in here with a smile, my head held high. Because, quite frankly, he died in 2013. And the way we dropping brothers out these days right now, I have no idea if my son would have been one of them people who would have been, the next whatever, so fill in the blank, or whatever name you want to fill in that could have been dealing with those situations, bro. So for me, I'm like, I consider myself blessed and grateful that I didn't have to see whatever potentially he could have gone through.
For sure. So listening to you do story, man, it has been affirmed in my heart that you, like, literally are destined to do what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Listen, it sounds like your mom prepared you.
Oh yeah.
For this exact role, like it's really, really dope to hear that, because just just listening to the background and how it all goes, it's kind of cool. Like it's watching, like listening to the story unfold and you be exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. So before I get in the second part of my question, to pivot a little bit and bring this to you, I'm glad you're seeing this, right? Because you and I have been having this conversation for a long time, right? So a little backstory for y'all that don't know. So I started working at New Britain High School in August 2005. He started 2003. So he was there 2 years before me. I left in 2008 to pursue insurance and mortgages. Terrible time to do it, September 2008. Right? But I did it anyway, right? And I told him, I said, Chief, I said, you should leave too. I said, if you don't leave now, you're never gonna leave, right? That's what I said to him, basically like my last couple of days. And this dude, as you guys may know, definitely the audience knows, like he is a exceptional poet, like exceptional, right? Like travels the world, exceptional, been on national TV. But this MFer won't let go of what his day job is to do what he's called to do. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm grateful that you guys are here to talk about how you are walking in your calling. Right.
When you looked directly at me when you were responding to DJ talking about leaving a 20-year career to enter something new, I felt like he was talking to me.
It's like church. It's like church, right? You out there acting up.
You was talking about you talking 20 years and looked me dead in my face. I knew you was talking to me. You know what I'm saying?
The funny thing is I wasn't, actually, until just now. No, I'm dead serious. Until just now. But that's the thing. It's like, that moreover, right? Like, you know it's time. Right? You know it's time. And it's just... And we're not even going to talk about how much money he made from poetry, right? Like, we're not going to talk about that because then that would lead me down a whole nother path. Because it's not because he can't afford to do it. It's just like, it's something I'm holding him back. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude, just leave.
I think in the same token though, Bell, like I really would love to just be able to tour the world and do my poetry and inspire people the way I do. But I also believe there's a calling in what I do now. So like literally just yesterday, I got oh, Mr. P, what's up? Listen, man, I want to apologize. I thank you so much for believing it. Like just yesterday. You know what I'm saying? It was just affirmation of doing what I do and investing in these kids and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm torn.
Yeah, almost. No, I was too. I'm going to tell you something that somebody told me. And it does pertain. Different industry and context, but it does pertain. I had that same conversation with Sean, right? And he listened. He heard me. He's like, you know, Bell, I hear you, man. But don't be naive enough to think that you're the only person that can help these kids. He said that, and then he followed up by saying, I'm going to tell you what he said to me, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say to you. He's like, but you may be the only person that can come back and show them how to make six figures. Right? He's like, you're not the only one that can do this, but you're one of few that can come back and show them how to make six figures. Right? So you're one of few that can show them how to walk in their calling and take their talent to the highest level possible. Right? So you are not moving, not because of, this is my opinion, this is not fact, because they need you so much. I think you're not moving because you're not aware of how much you could impact these people. I think you see your biggest impact that you can make is in your job. But I think the biggest impact you can make is walking in your purpose. Right? And teaching these kids how to walk in their purpose. So, same thing, different conversation. Right? Now, I was also, but then, and think about it, bro. Like, if we get into my story just a little bit, like, I left in September 2008. Right? I had a good paying job. 2008, I was what, 25? Right? So, 26, something like that. And 26. And I left a good paying job with a mortgage and a child I had custody of to be self-employed. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have no savings. I had the little 403B that I had from when I left the high school. It was $13,000. That's what I had. I don't even think I've ever said that publicly. But it was $13,000. That's all I had. And I had to pay a mortgage. And I had to provide for a child. And I'm like, nah, I'm betting on myself. And you remember during that time, I was fucked up financially. House pre-foreclosure, all of that stuff. And the high school offered me my job back twice. Because both people they replaced me with didn't work out. And I could have been like, see, this is it. This is why I need to go back. This is my calling. But what I said was, and I was thinking about this. One day we should probably get on and tell our whole stories. I was thinking about this just on the drive over, actually. But during this time, like, I was selling cigarettes that I got from China to make ends meet. You know what I'm saying? And I still didn't take the job. Like, think about that for a second.
I remember.
Like, I got gas money, bro. Like, that's it. And I'm like, nah. But it was pride because two things were true. One, if I go back, everybody who told me I'm dumb for leaving a good job will be right. Two, all this sacrifice over the last year that I made will be in vain. Because for that, I should have just stayed. You know what I'm saying? But then I bet on myself and I left that industry and I found my current company 2 years later, 2 years after I left. I've been there ever since. So all I'm saying is, man, it will work out. You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy because I don't necessarily doubt it won't work out.
But you doubt the impact that you can actually make. You believe that the impact that your calling is where you are. And what I will say is that may have been where it started. But that's not where it's supposed to end. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I love these. Like this wasn't on the script. You know what I'm saying? Like we just went on a different path, but it was necessary. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing about these conversations is they may not happen in the manner in which we planned, but they happen in the manner in which they were necessary. You know what I'm saying? So
part two of the question. I think she might be. I'm sure Mookie, can you hear him? All right.
No.
Shout out to Mookie in the background.
You can hear me?
A little bit, just higher up.
We're not going to talk about these mic stands.
What's wrong?
Did we do reviews on them? Because they seem kind of janky.
You don't know what you're doing. You got to shorten the stem of the joint or something, man. Like, get your life together, B. Blame Mookie. Mookie set it up. Nevertheless, while he's doing that, fellas, so growing up and falling into your lane in corporate America, were there people in your circle in corporate America? Because, you know, I'm assuming inner city, like, we don't see the white collar. You know what I'm saying? We don't see that very often. So were there people in your family or in your circle who were in corporate America, came back and talked to you about it or encouraged you to go that way or even look in that direction?
Yeah, for me, no. Right, there wasn't how I wanted to be in corporate America. I'll be honest. You know how we used to be at our grandmama's house or whatever. You know, you watching the stories. They call them stories. You know, like
Young and Restless.
right. All my children, Days of Our Lives, all of them. Right. But hey, look, I said I grew up in a barbershop, so that's what
General Hospital.
General Hospital. I don't know if I watched General Hospital, but it's all the same, right?
Mm-hmm. All the same.
I just knew I wanted to be like whoever the white people were that were, hanging out in the middle of the day, carrying briefcases, drinking scotch in the middle of the day, then going out, and I was just like, what do they do? Right. Because my mom God bless her, she's awesome. She was an educator, and then eventually an administrator, principal inside the school. So, but so corporate America wasn't like in my path, right? When I went to high school, when I was in high school, I did have now a fraternity brother, but he was one of my mentors, Mr. Dunn then, and he started talking to us about doing more than what our school did. Our school fought for a sport, right? That's what we did. We fought, right? Fisticuffs. That's what we did. And then we went to the military, right? We went to the military. That's it. We were absolutely a pipeline. I remember my high school counselor had awards from all the armed services for the number of people that she helped recruit. She even told me that I wasn't college material, yet and still I got 2 academic scholarships from 2 different universities, by the way. So that's what we did. So corporate America wasn't in there. I just knew I wanted to make money, and I wanted to be like those people that were on TV. I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And so that was it. I knew I wanted to be in business. Didn't know what business really was, right? Didn't have an idea. I just wanted to carry a briefcase, and I wanted to hang out, and then date pretty women, in the middle of the day.
Right,
apparently,
right,
that's what I thought all they did. Right? They didn't work. They never worked 8 hours. Y'all know that, right?
Did you get you a badass briefcase?
Oh, bro, let me tell you. Right? Let me tell you, when I got my job, when I got this job in 1995, again, I'm going back to my dad. Man, that dude, sometimes, he confused the hell out of me. He whipped my ass, too, growing up. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't that loving. He didn't tell me he loved me while he was hating me. But when I got this job in 1995, my dad bought me a briefcase. I don't even know, I don't know if I shared this story with him in my mind, but he bought me a briefcase and brought it to me and said, congratulations, right? And I never thought about it, right? That he was going to do that, and that meant so much to me. I carried that briefcase for probably about 5 years till it eventually, went by the wayside. But yeah, so I did get my briefcase.
That's dope.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
real dope. Hell yeah, that's dope.
So just for a point of clarity, so college or your was the academic advisor, guidance counselor, one was putting up people in the recruiter.
Oh yeah. She was throwing them in there.
Yeah, so they didn't recommend college for you.
Oh yeah. I absolutely defied her odds because I did not like that. Not that I have nothing wrong with the military. Don't get me wrong, right? But that's what it was. That was just we were the pipeline. There were so many. I went to a school that was absolutely integrated, right? We were talking about. I graduated in 1989. Shout out to University City Indians, St. Louis, Missouri. They're now the Lions. We can't say Indians, but either way, that's what. We just, it was integrated, but it was majority black school, right? So there were athletes, but they weren't academics. We didn't have a lot of kids leaving our college or our high school and going to college, right? There were a few. And again, my son served in the Navy, so I have no problems with the armed forces. It's just not, at that point, I wanted to prove her wrong, right? Because she told me what I could not do.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, here's an option. Here's an option. You can do this. You can do that. You can be in this. You can be in that. No, she was like, oh, you're not college material.
Right.
What?
They're going to tell me what I am.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was it. And, people say, you still tell that story because it was a marker moment. It's what we call a marker moment. And that's what it was for me.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. You graduate college.
Uh-huh.
And how do you get attracted to corporate?
One, money. I needed money. So when I graduated college, I had actually 2 kids by that time.
Okay.
Right. So my wife and I, she had graduated. She was working for Anheuser-Busch, and we needed to make more money. And I knew that I was really good I thought I'd be really good at sales, right? Again, my dad was a preacher, right? My mom was an educator, so I could speak the Queen's English, right? King's English. My dad was a barber, so I knew entrepreneurship. And so it was, I could talk to people, and it was like, I want to sell. And so how I found this company was just, I was intrigued by who they were talking to and what they were actually doing and putting people into jobs, important jobs.
Right.
And that's where that comes back to the Young and the Restless and all the rest of them. I'm like, this thing kind of works, right? It was almost like a fantasy land. I'm like, I can talk to this person and put this person in that company, and then I get paid to do that.
Right.
I was like, absolutely, 100%, sign me up. And that was it. And never looked back from there, right? Because I knew that I was, again, that was actually part, again, my mission, right, in life. That was part of my testimony, is what they say. That was part of this thing that I didn't understand. My dad was putting me around people all the time. So I was actually changing people's lives by putting them to work. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So kind of fulfilling two things, right?
Yeah.
Like making money because you need to, because you have 2 kids, and also helping people, as you know, your dad helped people in his ministry, right?
That's it.
No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Brother Donnell?
Yeah, same thing. I didn't have any white collar, anybody and around me. Like, so, you know, growing up in a D, everything was about, you know, the plant and work. You know, like that was like the that was the goal. The goal was that just get into the plant and you're good. And again, you know, no shade on anybody that, you know, did that or does that today, right? But I knew that was not going to be for me.
Right.
That being said, I still had a mouth to feed. Well, mouths to feed. I got married very young, right? I got married when I was, you know, 20 years old. I had my first kid when I was 19. So I had a lot going on. So I had to make the bills. You know, I had to pay the bills in some way, shape, or form. And I actually was, ironically enough, I was the very people that we put to work. So I was actually a contractor for the company that I actually work for today. Ironically enough.
That's crazy.
And I was doing electromechanical work and stuff like that, and I was wiring up, you know, machines and things of that nature. And the gentleman who used to come in, who was a representative from our organization, came in and he was like, "You seem to be really good with just like talking to people and just like comfortable in that space." And I was like, "Well, yeah, you know," because he'd come in and I would always be, you know, just doing some talking to people and things like that. And he had mentioned that somebody that he knew was starting up a staffing company in Detroit. And they were looking for some people that they weren't hiring at his company at the time, but they were looking for some people, whatever. And so, man, I just went in, you know, not knowing a thing about this business, not knowing a thing about white collar, and was just like, all right, well, here's the one thing I do know. I know my gift of gab is pretty good. I can get through that. I was fairly decent at typing if I had to type some stuff up, right? I didn't know the first thing about a P&L or anything like that. Didn't know how any of that stuff worked or what it meant or anything like that. But one thing I did know is that, you know, one piece of credit I will give my sperm donor is that my Jamaican roots kicked in. And it was one of those things where at all costs I'm going to make sure I make it happen and work my behind off in order to get it done. So I was an instant student. So when I walked in and did my interview, I remember telling the guy, like, "Hey, I've never done this stuff before. I don't know anything to do about it. But, you know, nobody's going to work harder than me."
Right. And
that's been my MO ever since I've been in white collar, is that you're not going to outwork me. You might be able to have whatever degree you have and may have had some experience and had somebody that brought you up in these things, that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to outwork me, bro.
Right.
You can try, but you're going to be there a long time. And so for me, that's what it was all about for me. But DJ, to your point, right, it was also an opportunity for me to be able to elevate myself to a place to where it was like I wanted to do something different that was meaningful. And I remember telling my sons as well, this is when they were much younger and everything, like, "Yeah, what do you do? Like, what do you do?"
Yeah.
And I remember telling them like, "Hey, I help people put food on the table every single day.
Yeah,
I provide jobs for people, so I actually allow them to put food on the table every single day to keep the lights on in their house. The very same things that I didn't really have, I had struggles with growing up when I was a kid. So it was like, hey, man, like if I can help those people, and more importantly, help people that look like me to get to those places and be able to do those things, and you're going to pay me for it, sign me up.
Yeah, right. As they say, that part.
Correct.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Now, have either of you taken opportunities to step back into the inner city and talk to the youth about corporate America and the opportunities that it provides?
100%. Right. I like to say, my man here, I know he's doing some things right now. Currently up in Detroit, he's always giving back. My fraternity, I belong to Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated. And have been part of this.
Shout out to P, man. We didn't even give him a top. Apprentice is on the road touring and whatnot, doing his poem thing, so we couldn't make it today.
We need to get with him. So I've been part of this organization since 1991, right? Spring 91. So it is part of our charge, right? It is part of what we do is to give back, to be inside of our community, right? Manly Deeds, Scholarship and Love for All Mankind, or the deeds of and the tenets of our fraternity. So it goes, if you are going to be an active member of this fraternity, which I am, right, by the way, financially and active, you go back, you give back in the places, right? So whether it's going into the schools or whether it's volunteering at the churches or in the community centers and so on and so forth, I make sure that I'm there and I give that time, Yes, 100%.
Same. To DJ's point, right? I do a lot of stuff specifically with inner city youth. Like that's a really big thing for me, because again, some people did it for me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, had it not, had it not been for those, the Lord only knows where I would be, right, to this day. And so, I try to invest back into that piece of things. I really try to focus a lot, man, on just access. Like that is my biggest thing when I go back into the city and go back into those areas is like, how can we grant them the access that we didn't have? Because that is the game changer. Like I'm not saying education is wonderful and it's necessary. Being able to have a certain skill and those kind of things, wonderful, necessary. But access above and beyond all else can get you to places in life that you have no idea that we even existed, right? Because of the joys of the things that all three of us do for a living in the company that we work for. I can be frank with you, man. I've traveled all around this country because of my company. It gave me access. I got to learn about what people do in California versus in Florida versus in Texas because I had access. Somebody who grew up on the same street that I grew up in right now is living on that same street. They don't have that access. So only thing I'm trying to do is give them access. Period.
What they do with it is up to them. But they still have it.
Absolutely.
That's what's up. That's definitely what's up. Fellas, we had a list of questions for you guys. You guys were so thorough. You kind of knocked them all out in the same token. Anything left for them, Mel? I mean,
nah, man, I'm good, man. I don't have anything. Coming off this, I'm like, we need to do this more often.
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Whether a camera's on or not, just like fellowship, right? We talked about that at the summit last year, and looking forward to it again this year. But it's like, I was talking to Kunle about this in King Coon some years ago, and we were just talking about like how we operate and move as black men, right? And I think, and I'll speak for myself, sometimes for me, this podcast, up until this podcast, there was no space to slow down for me, right? There was no space to slow down and have this level of conversation. And because of it, I'm forced to, because we record, right? But there's a lot of people who either A, may or may not have the circle that they can have this conversation with, right? So this is why we do it, because people talk to us. Like, we got a voicemail line, they call, and they leave messages, and they email us, stuff like that, because they may not have that. But I just feel like it's so important, because of the conversation I was having with Kunle is like, we just go.
Yeah.
Right? We go. We're wired to go, right? And what I had told him, I'm like, I go because I feel in like my heart of hearts, and maybe not so much now anymore, but then, that's about like 4 or 5 years ago, in my heart of hearts, it's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. So I can't slow down because this may all go away. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, and again, I don't feel like that now. Like, I don't operate from a scarcity mindset or anything like that, but that was how I was wired. You know, so like when it came to like being in a predominantly white organization, it was like, nah. Like, they're like, nah, Bell, you don't have to wear a tie on Friday. Now I'm gonna wear a tie. Right? I'm safe measure. Right? Like, I'm not going to do things I'm not gonna do the things you do, because I'm not afforded that same luxury. Right? So I gotta keep going. Like, yeah, you got up from your cubicle to go talk to somebody at their cubicle. I'm not doing that, bro. Unless it's my lunch break, right? So, and we're wired that way in a lot of cases, and we don't take the time for ourselves, because the thing is, if we don't find the space, right, we can combust.
Absolutely.
Right? And we'll be no good to no one, right? Ourselves or anyone that's looking at us to pass the torch, right? So, I'm appreciative of that. Like, I'm appreciative that the three of us, now the four of us, got to spend this much time together today, because, like I said, it's our first time interviewing anybody in person, and it's a different experience for me. Like, it's a different experience. Now, obviously, I know y'all, but it's a different experience. So I'm grateful, because I think the audience too can hear different perspectives, right? Like, you guys are obviously accomplished and successful and on the top of your field. and then understanding that there's still relatability. Right? There's still relatability. Like, yeah, you may be in a job that they want to be in and may or may not even know the path or if it's possible, but now they know, like, whoa, well, he grew up in the inner city, right? His father wasn't around and he did it, right? So it creates a level of relatability, which I'm just grateful for and appreciative for and grateful for the podcast to allow us this period to slow down. So that's my final thought too, by the way.
You definitely have to buy it. You don't get that. We got to get another one. So, fellas, we typically close out every episode with a final thought, and it's just kind of giving some nuggets that you take away from the conversation we had today, good, bad, or indifferent. And just kind of leave the people with, your take on the moment we just had. So you can lead the way and go right into it.
What I'm
You
saying,
don't get that. I'll do mine, and then you're gonna go back to you. Then we let the fellas close out, and then we'll come back to me. How about that? Matter of fact, D, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. Final thought in regards to the episode.
Probably my biggest final thought, man, is that to echo what you said. The space to slow down is extremely underrated.
100%.
It's extremely underrated. And the value in that is being able to let some things off your chest and let some things off your shoulders that, quite frankly, we probably carry around a whole lot more than what we need to and have to. And just, I think the other final thought is gratitude. Because I think about where I came from and where I'm at. And to your point, I still struggle with a little bit of that scarcity thing. Like, it's gonna all be taken away tomorrow, right? It's all gonna be coming. So I'm grateful because it's times like this that when it gets really tough, I can refer back to in my head and be able to say, hey man, you do have people you can call.
100%.
You got people who you can reach out to. And you don't have to do everything on your own. Although sometimes you tell yourself these false stories that you have to. So yeah, that's it for me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would just echo that as far as the gratitude, right? As we said and we hear tonight, right? I do believe, and I don't know if they, what they call them, little angels or little butterfly moments. There's certain things, right, that happen in life, right, for a reason. So what is the reason? There's a reason for us to be here tonight, and I appreciate you all, but there's a feeling here, there's a something here, there's the start of something, right? Whether it's in our individual lives or somebody else's life, right? Definitely for me, right? So I'm grateful for that, and I appreciate that, and just to echo that moment, I love the name of this podcast, All Black Men Need Therapy. I always like to tell people, cut yourself a break. Right, we're walking around with a lot of stress. Right, we're walking around with things that are just hitting us on a daily basis. We absorb so much. The level of stimulation that happens in people's lives is overwhelming.
100%.
It is overwhelming, and people don't understand that. We're constantly stimulated by our phones, the actions that are around us, the people that need us, the things that we're trying to do, and a job, and maybe a spouse or a loved one or whatever, a kid, and we got all this stuff going on, and somehow in here we think that we actually can handle it, right? And we bullshit ourselves, right? So cut yourself a break, all right, and get you some therapy, because that is the best thing for all of us, right? But especially for Black men. So I appreciate y'all. This ministry that y'all have right here is big time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all for coming, man. Seriously, there was so many different nuggets that I took in from this, man. I wrote down a bunch of different notes, and there's a couple points I want to say as a final thought, just because it's going to go in all different directions. But I look down and I look at my shirt, and this is a shout out to my man Bob, directioncyop.com. Check it out. But my shirt says "We Major," and we are. You know what I'm saying? So this, like you said, this is purposeful. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is we major. We doing all of us in our own regards are doing some great things for the people. And that's something we need to bask in and pat ourselves on the back for. So that's a big deal. I think when we talked about growing up and like with our parents and not knowing, but I think I heard somebody say a while ago, like as children, we don't realize that we're watching our parents grow up. Yeah. As we're growing. So it's their first time too. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So as adults now, we need to be mindful of that, give ourselves some grace in that regard, but also give our parents some grace too, because they didn't always have it right. They were still growing up in the process. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was big for me. Being a voice for the voiceless is something that I think I also found monumental, because it happens in all regards, in all facets. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I never would have used those words as it applied to you guys' job. And I think it was so cool for me to hear that. You talked about your mission, and it brought me to this another quote that somebody said, and they said, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I thought, just in reference to what we do, you know what I'm saying? So
the irony.
You gonna keep taking shots.
And lastly, I think the most monumental thing that I'm taking away from this is, regardless of your career, your trade, your path, whatever the case may be, I think we should all strive to be arbitrators of fairness. I think that's almost like a key to life right there. Just try to be an arbitrator of fairness, because it ain't fair for everybody, but we can hold fairness in our own regard.
Love that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Bellhead, I'm not letting you get away with that.
Bro, how am I supposed to follow that? Like, how am I supposed to follow that? Let that be my final thought. Let's say I went first, bro. Like, that's crazy. I can't follow that. No.
All right. That's cool. So we'll take that. Per usual, y'all, man, I had a blast today, fellas. I thought this was super, super dope. I want to put it out there, like, although, this, like, you called it a ministry. Fellas, if for some reason, you feel the need and urge, you know what, I'm going through something, I would like to sit down with these brothers again and have a conversation on a podcast, please bring it to us, man. We would be honored to shuffle through some real life stuff with some real life people. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be dope. We, All Black Men Need Therapy, are on all social media outlets at
Subscribe.
All Black Men Need Therapy. Please subscribe, follow, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. We need to get our followers, our viewership and our followers up. We're moving in a really good direction, and we need your support. Fellas, if you wanted to shout out, I don't know how active you are on social medias, but if you want to shout out your social media, we'll tag them. We'll put the links into our, at the end of the episode and on the podcasting forum. But if you want to shout them out, just people, they want to follow you. Maybe they have some questions on, I don't know. But if it's worth it, feel free.
Sure, Black Coffee 71 on Instagram.
Hey.
I love it.
Of course, it's Black Coffee.
It is, absolutely.
DJ Smooth Detroit on Instagram.
He put his radio voice on.
Yeah, word. He slowed it, toned it down a little bit.
Love voice.
Nah, that's what's up.
Quiet storm out there.
That's what's up. Again, we're on All Black Men Need Therapy on all social media outlets. We have a new phone line. Feel free to call us, leave us a voicemail, send us a text message, 860-410-6160, 860-410-6160. Our production team will put that at the bottom of the screen for you, so you can feel free to reach out, shoot us a text, questions, comments, complaints, or concerns. We're willing to take them. I feel like it's something else I'm missing that we're supposed to do. Like, share, subscribe.
Yeah.
Hug a black man today.
That's coming. That's coming.
Oh, we just got a Threads account. I just made a Threads account.
Okay.
So follow us on Threads. All Black Men Need Therapy. We got TikTok too. I don't know what else you'd be missing.
I don't know, but again, the level up is coming, y'all. So stay tuned for merch coming, website.
We're going live every day this week. Check us out on our Instagram. Around 9-ish.
9-ish.
Yeah.
We gonna figure it out. But per usual, man, do us all a favor. Hug a black man today.
Do it.
Shout out to Prentice. And tomorrow.
Do it.
We out, y'all.
Peace. It's a wrap, right?
Boom. It's a wrap.
Y'all want to go say do that shit? Like,
He changes it up every episode. You know what I'm saying? If you do that shit.